Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Smile Sessions. Today, I'm going to take us back to August 9th, 2018. This was the day I was waiting my whole life for. My C-section was scheduled for 2:15 p.m. I woke up super early on the day of my surgery for the simple reason that I was unable to eat 8 hours prior to the surgery. So, for the sake of my partner, not being murdered by a hangry pregnant woman, the definition of hangry is bad-tempered or irritable as a result of hunger. I get very hangry if I miss a meal. So that morning, I got up at 5 a.m. to make the feast of all feasts, a pregnant woman's delight. I made Martha Stewart's pancakes. They are a no-fail recipe, and they come out extra fluffy, followed by 2 eggs, over easy, bacon, a bagel toasted with cream cheese, yogurt, and fresh cut strawberries. I was basically trying to stuff myself with as much food as possible before the cutoff of 6:15. I thought this plan was foolproof. By 10:30 a.m., I started to hear grumblings from my stomach. For the next hour and a half, I proceeded to ignore the signs that all the food that I ate was wearing off. By 11 a.m., I clearly was hungry and starting to panic. I kept sipping water in hopes that it would magically make me feel full. I had gone over to Blow Hair Studio to have my hair done so that I wouldn't have to worry about washing my hair for a few days postpartum. The girl was so great who was styling my hair. She was a mom of a toddler, so it was nice because she offered advice and calmed my nerves, which was very helpful. When I returned home, I basically changed and left for the hospital. At this point, I'm officially starving and worried I'm going to get a headache because I'm past that point of hunger. I feel like hangry should be treated as a serious medical condition because many men who have been victimized by hangry women would agree. My poor partner, I ripped him a new one that day on the way to the hospital. I can't even remember why. So that tells me there's a good chance this wasn't his fault. But I mean, just like Joe Pesci, I'm not me when I'm hungry. I'll share this side story. When I was doing my hair extension course, I had to go downtown, and I made sure to have breakfast prior because, again, trying to avoid an ugly situation. My parents came with me because they were going to spend the day downtown. When it came to lunchtime, the instructor asked if I wanted to end early and work through lunch. I wasn't familiar with the area, so I figured, you know what? I felt okay. Yeah, let's work through lunch and end early. Oh, how I will regret this decision later. I get out of there at about 2 o'clock and I call my parents to meet me back at the car. When we meet up, I tell them I'm starving and that we need to find somewhere to eat. Tim Hortons, McDonald's, A&W, something to curb the hunger. I instantly regretted not bringing snacks with me like granola bars. I always had granola bars on me in high school. How did I not think ahead? The Capricorn in my head is scolding me in that moment. There's definitely a lot going on. So we started heading back home, hoping to stop along the way. Why is it that whenever your stomach is at the point of eating itself, you can't find anywhere to eat? At this point, I'm now reminiscing about my grandmother always packing food on family trips to Thorold. The woman was a genius. I knew in that moment I needed to be more like her. Finally, I see a glimmer of hope up ahead. A Petro-Canada sign with a Tim Hortons logo underneath it. I peel into the driveway like I'm Mario Andretti and threw the car in park, leaving the car running with my parents sitting inside. I rushed through the doors and quickly looked at the attendant and asked, "Where's the Tim Hortons?" And he points to this sad little coffee stand with a self-serve coffee station set up. Tim Hortons coffee, yes, but no food. I turn around, not before yelling, "This is ridiculous!" as I rush back to the car with no food in hand, and my parents are clearly confused. I jump in and I scream, "They don't have any food! How do they not have any food?" Thank goodness my father is a patient man, and he has the ability to help me rationalize when I'm not thinking clearly. He says that there's an A&W not far from there, and that we should keep going. He was not wrong, and I finally run in and order myself 2 wraps to tame the hunger beast inside me. I think about that attendant often and what must have been going through his head in those exact moments. So you can see from the story why it's important to keep snacks on hand at all times. So back to my delivery day. Once inside the hospital, everything was starting to feel very real. It was happening. I was going to give birth to my child, and I was so excited to see if I was right about the sex of my baby. My partner knew all along, but I asked him to keep it from me as I wanted to be surprised. There are so few surprises that we have in our lives. Intuitively, I felt like I was having a boy, and soon enough, I will be able to meet my little bundle of joy. My partner and I constantly talked about what the baby was going to look like. It was so exciting to see what features of ours the baby would inherit. When the nursing team was ready, we were brought into the operating room so that they could prep me for surgery. I have to say, I'm so thankful for the nursing staff at North York General Hospital. They were great at easing my nerves. The anesthesiologist was ready to administer the epidural, and I was scared out of my mind. The nurse was great. She told me to hug her as hard as I wanted and to remain still while the doctor administered it. I immediately started to feel this warm, tingling sensation that started to go down my legs, and then they helped me to lay down on the operating table. Now, prior to this operation, I was informed not to shave 3 weeks prior to my C-section date. It's generally recommended not to shave before a C-section because shaving can create small nicks and cuts in the skin, which can increase the risk of infection at the surgical site. These tiny cuts can allow bacteria to enter, potentially leading to complications such as folliculitis, which is inflamed hair follicles, or cellulitis, which is a serious skin infection. Instead, medical staff will use sterile tools to prepare the area, ensuring it's done in a way that minimizes risk of infection. I've suffered from folliculitis, and it's not fun, so I listened to their warning. Now, I feel like it's necessary to mention that the entire operating team that day looked like the cast of Grey's Anatomy. So, you could imagine my horror when this cute little blonde nurse goes, "Can someone pass me the razor?" Once she was done, my OB gave me a quick rundown of what was going to take place next. I think with all the meds that were being pumped into me, I started to feel very nauseous. Clark Kent, who I coined the anesthesiologist, he was great at mixing my meds to keep that under control. Apparently, my insides were sitting on top of my chest from what my partner tells me. I'm surprised he didn't pass out from seeing that, but he was running on adrenaline, waiting to meet our little one. I remember at one point, I could feel all of this pressure right at my shoulders as if they were going to break apart from my body. Other than that, thankfully, I didn't feel much else. When my OB pulled out the baby, he made reference that the baby was completely wrapped in the placenta and that there was no way I was ever doing a natural delivery. Then he asked me, "What do you think you're having?" I said, "A boy." He held me in suspense for another minute, and then finally he announced, "It's a boy." I knew in my heart it was a boy, so it was really nice to know intuitively I was right. I was so excited to see him, but they quickly took him to the examining table. I was waiting while they did what they needed to do. When they finally brought him over to us, it was like time stood still. I just remember being overwhelmed with love and joy. We both cried happy tears, and it's a memory that will be etched in my brain forever. After that, they took the baby to clean him up and continue with his examination. It was determined, because he didn't have a natural birth, there was fluid that was in his lungs that he would have to go to the NICU for a few days inside an incubator. They brought him to see me in a separate room so that we could have some skin-to-skin time before they transferred him to the other unit. I couldn't believe how tiny he was. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Considering the size of my belly, I was sure this kid was going to be bigger. He had a head full of dark brown hair, exactly like me when I was born. I was thankful he had taken my partner's nose. We named him Leonardo Vincenzo, but we call him Leo for short. Shortly after, Leo was transferred to the NICU, and I was put into a semi-private room until a private one became available. My partner was with Leo, as I wasn't going to be able to get out of bed until after midnight. Currently 4 o'clock, and surprisingly, I wasn't hungry. I took the opportunity to try and rest, but I was high on adrenaline, and meds from the surgery, of course. I couldn't sleep. I was texting and sending photos to family and friends. It was such an exciting time. Early evening, my parents came to visit, along with my brother. They brought me food and snacks to eat, but I still hadn't regained my appetite. My mother continued on like nothing had happened the day before. This was what she did. She doesn't discuss her actions. She'll just continue on with life. This is a clear example of how communication was in our house growing up. My mother never learned how to manage her emotions, so she flew off the handle when she didn't get her way, and the rest of the family walked on eggshells around her. I know now, having gone through therapy, that this is a generational cycle, and that it's not my mother's fault, or her mother's fault, and so on and so forth. We have so much more education and information at our disposal that it's getting out there to those individuals who are looking for coping strategies. Then my parents left and went to meet Leo in the NICU. My partner took them over to see him. I remained in the room trying to express whatever colostrum I could supply for Leo until my milk came in. For the first few days after birth, the body will make colostrum, a nutrient-rich pre-milk, which has many benefits, including nutrients that boost a baby's immune system and help fight infection. For some women, colostrum is thick and yellowish. For others, it is thin and watery. I'm not going to lie. I felt like it was a cow being milked, and it was super uncomfortable. By about 10 p.m., I had the urge to use the washroom. The epidural was wearing off, and now I had the sensation to go. Problem was, I had a catheter, so it needed to be removed prior. I rang for my nurse, and she came to see me. I told her that I needed to use the washroom, but she told me I had to wait. It didn't matter how much I pleaded with her to remove it. She wouldn't listen. She finally gave me the green light to use the washroom. Problem was, I had to get out of bed. I braced myself for what was to come, and when my feet hit the floor, I saw stars. This pain is something that I will forever remember, but there are no amount of words that I can use to convey that excruciating feeling. Each step got a little bit more bearable only because it was a constant pain at that point. When I finally got to the toilet to sit down and let go, boy, did I let go. The nurse replied, "Oh, wow, you really did have to go." No, I was just lying to be a pain in the ass. But shortly after that, I started to feel dizzy, and I was having trouble seeing. Things started going black, and my hearing started to sound very hollow. I was on the verge of passing out. I remember the nurse leaning me up against the wall while she called for help and ran for juice. I thought, great, I waited my whole life to give birth, and now I'm going to die on the toilet. This was what was going through my head. I then remember being slapped on the cheek to bring me to, and she had me sip on juice. Suddenly, my vision started coming back and I was coherent. The nurse helped me to the sink to wash my hands and then back to bed. My sugars had dropped significantly since I hadn't eaten anything since 5 a.m. the prior morning. She passed me the food my parents brought me earlier, and I started to feel better. As I lay in bed that night, reflecting on the day's events, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Despite the challenges and the pain, I had brought a beautiful new life into the world. My little Leo was finally here, and he was perfect in every way. To all the expectant mothers out there, remember that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be overwhelmed. But know that you're stronger than you think, and you're capable of incredible things. Trust in yourself, lean on your support system, and take it one step at a time. Thank you for joining me today on this journey. I hope my story has brought a smile to your face and maybe even a tear to your eye. Join me next week when I continue my journey on days postpartum following the birth of Leo. Until next time, keep smiling and cherish every moment.